The alphas moved through the forest like shadows, weaving between ancient trees, their paws pressing into the damp earth and leaves. Whispering under each careful step, the air was heavy with the smell of moss and fallen pine, and something deeper, hidden beneath the scent of life and decay. Muscles coiled and eyes sharp, every sound and movement etched into their minds. Birds hushed in the distance, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Their ears twitched at the distant snap of a branch, or the rustle of unseen creatures beneath the underbrush. They had been gone from their territory longer than usual, hunting and exploring the edges of the forest and returning. Now each step carried the weight of anticipation and worry. The sun slanted through the canopy, sending long streaks of gold and green across the ground, painting patterns that danced with their movement. They were cautious, but driven, a pull stronger than curiosity that tugged at their hearts and instincts. The alpha male lead with silent authority, muscles rippling beneath his fur, every sense alert yet tempered with control. The alpha female followed closely, eyes scanning every shadow, the subtle dip of the earth, or movement of leaves, or sudden shift in the wind could hide danger, or hint at something unexpected. They moved with a rhythm only they knew, a rhythm older than thought itself. The forest felt alive, as though it watched them, as though the trees themselves waited to reveal what lay ahead. A flicker of movement in the corner of their eyes made their ears pivot and tails stiffen. They paused, head low, sniffing the air. The faintest hint of a scent reached them, an unfamiliar mixture of warmth and life, not entirely animal, not entirely forest. It made their hearts beat faster. A strange excitement and unease rippled through their muscles. Instincts whispered warnings, yet something in the air felt compelling, irresistible, like a thread pulling them forward. Each step closer to the clearing, they could feel tension building, a quiet anticipation pressing against their ribs, a mixture of hope and dread gnawed at them. The thought of their cub alone made their minds whirl and claws dig into the earth. They moved slower now, their senses straining, ears flicking, noses sniffing every hint of wind, their eyes catching every shadow and ripple of light. Something was there ahead, something they did not expect, and the forest seemed to lean closer, as if holding its breath to reveal the secret that waited just beyond the bend. The scent grew stronger and more distinct, a warmth mingled with earth and something soft like skin, and the alphas froze, heads low, noses twitching, their eyes scanning every movement. The forest seemed to hum with quiet energy. A bird took flight in the distance, and the sound startled them. A muscle twitched along the alpha male's flank. The alpha female narrowed her eyes, ears flicking back and forth. The scent carried a note of innocence, something that made their instincts hesitate. A ripple of caution ran through them, but also a pull deeper than hunger or fear, a pull that made their steps deliberate, slow, careful, each paw placed with measured precision. The underbrush whispered against their fur, the air smelled of damp moss and hidden streams, and beneath it all the subtle perfume of life, not their own, and yet familiar in the way that only blood and bond can feel. They moved closer to the clearing, hearts hammering and lungs drawing in every hint of air. The forest opened gradually, revealing patches of sunlight and shadows that stretched like fingers along the ground. Every leaf and twig seemed live beneath their gaze. They could hear the faintest rustle ahead, a soft exhale, a sigh almost human. An instinct prickled across their spines. Their eyes locked on a spot where the light dappled the grass, and they saw it, a small figure, unmoving and yet radiating calm, a presence so fragile and still that the alphas halted, frozen in disbelief. The scent was unmistakable. Their cub, but something else lingered in the air, another heartbeat, a warmth foreign yet gentle. The alpha female growled low in her throat, a sound not of anger but of caution, a warning, and the alpha male lowered his head, nostrils flaring to catch every nuance of scent and motion. The clearing seemed to expand around them, time slowing as the unknown presence drew them forward, curiosity and instinct warring in every sinew of their bodies. The moment hung fragile, balanced between fear and wonder, waiting to be revealed. The clearing opened fully before them, sunlight spilling across the grass and dappling the ground with golden patterns. The alpha stepped cautiously forward, muscles tense, hearts hammering every sense, screaming to move carefully yet quickly, and there it was, their cub, small and curled on the soft green grass, chest rising and falling in a calm, steady rhythm, fur shining in the sunlight, each tiny breath a promise of life and innocence. And beside the cub, a human lay still, and quiet, eyes closed, the warmth of their body pressed gently against the fur of the cub, a hand resting lightly on the soft coat. The scene was impossible, and yet undeniable. The alphas froze, caught between relief and disbelief. The cub was alive, safe but not alone, and the human radiated calm and something else. Something that tugged at instincts deeper than caution or fear. The air felt different here, softer, warmer, as if the forest itself exhaled a quiet sigh. The alpha male lowered his head, nostrils flaring, tasting the mixture of scents. The cub, human, earth, and air, and something indescribable that set muscles on edge. The alpha female shifted slightly, placing herself between her mate and the clearing, her eyes never leaving the small figures, her tail brushing the grass in tiny restless flicks. The cub stirred ever so slightly, stretching small paws and yawning, a sound that made the alpha's heart squeeze. The human moved as well, turning slowly to face them, eyes opening wide and unafraid, a look of wonder and curiosity that seemed to reach out and touch something in the wolves. They hesitated, not knowing how to feel the sight of their cub at peace, a strange creature beside it and the forest around them, holding its breath for what would come next. It was a moment suspended between fear and awe, a fragile balance that could shatter with a single wrong move. Yet for now nothing stirred but the sun on the grass, the small rise and fall of the cub's chest, and the silent presence of the human who seemed to belong as much to this world as to the one the alphas had known. The alphas circled slowly, muscles coiled like springs, their eyes never leaving the cub, and the human every step measured, cautious, each movement a question, a test. Their instincts screamed to protect and to strike, and yet something restrained them. Something older, wiser, telling them to wait, to watch, to understand. The moment before making any choice, the forest around them seemed quieter, even the wind softened as if it sensed the fragile balance hanging between predator and stranger. Their ears flicked at every sound, a snapping twig, a distant bird call, even the soft rustle of leaves became a signal. Their hearts beat in unison with the rhythm of the clearing. The alpha male lowered his head, nostrils flaring, catching every nuance of scent. The human was warm, soft, alive, and yet harmless, calm, radiating from them in waves that reached the wolves and slowed the tension in their muscles. The alpha female moved a step closer to the cub, watching the small figure breathe, her eyes narrowing with cautious curiosity. She had never seen anything like this. The cub stirred, nudging the human, gently rolling onto its side and pressing closer, warmth and trust shining in its gaze. The human whispered something low and soft, a sound that made the alpha male tilt his head, curiosity battling caution. The cub blinked, eyes half closed, then curled again, as if the human were a part of the forest itself, a presence as natural and vital as the sun on the grass or the breeze in the leaves. The alphas exchanged a glance, silent communication flowing between them, warning, respect, love, and confusion, all tangled together. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next heartbeat. The alpha female growled softly, not at threat but at uncertainty. The alpha male pawed lightly at the ground, hesitation mingled with instinct, every muscle ready to act, and yet frozen by the undeniable connection between cub and human, between wild and strange. And the moment stretched longer, the clearing alive with unspoken questions, as if the forest itself asked what would come next, who could claim the cub, and whether this fragile harmony could survive the tension. Coiled tighter every second, a promise of danger, or a gift of something unexpected. The human stirred slowly, eyes blinking open wide in wonder and surprise. The gaze met the alpha male first and held it, unflinching, calm, radiating from every small movement. The alphas froze, the cub twitched and sniffed, then pressed closer to the human, sensing the strange reassurance in the gentle presence. The alpha female shifted slightly, muscles tense, yet curiosity softening her stance. She watched the human, as if reading a language older than words. The child stretched small arms and yawned, tiny teeth catching the sunlight, then smiled, a soft gesture that reached to the wolves in a way that made their chests tighten with a strange warmth. The alpha male lowered his head ever so slightly, nostrils flaring, drinking in the scent. The human radiated life and calm, a combination the wolves had never encountered. Instinct warred with wonder, their eyes flicked to each other, a silent conversation passing between them. Their cub remained nestled close to the human warmth, radiating outward, a tether impossible to ignore. The forest seemed to exhale around them, every rustle, every whisper of wind, carrying the quiet moment forward. The human reached a small hand toward the cub, and it nudged gently into the touch, a tiny bridge of trust forming between worlds. The elf remained still, watching, waiting, learning the impossible bond stretching quietly and powerfully before them, a fragile harmony that none of them fully understood yet could not deny. The cub stirred more fully now, stretching tiny legs and yawning, wide eyes bright with curiosity and trust. It turned to the human, pressing its small, warm body closer and nuzzling against the outstretched hand. The human laughed softly, a gentle sound that seemed to ripple through the clearing, a warmth spreading in the wolves' hearts. They watched every motion, every tiny gesture. The alpha female shifted, closer, muscles coiled but not threatening, eyes softening as she observed the bond forming between their cub and the human. The alpha male lowered his head even further, nostrils twitching, drinking in the scent of life. Innocence and warmth combined in a way that puzzled and calmed him, instinct and reason tangled in a slow dance. The cub rolled onto its back, paws flailing slightly in playful trust, and the human responded with a soft laugh, lifting tiny fingers to scratch behind ears, and along the soft belly. The wolves could see the joy radiating from the cub, a pure, unguarded happiness. The alpha female stepped closer, letting her nose brush the grass near the cub, sniffing the human in careful curiosity. A low growl of approval rumbled in her chest, and the alpha male mirrored the motion, stepping forward just enough to be near, yet keeping space for the fragile trust to remain unbroken. The forest around them felt lighter, sunbeams danced across leaves, and the soft rustle of wind carried the scent of flowers and earth together, creating a perfect quiet moment. The cub rolled again, pressing fully against the human, as if declaring, "This new connection, theirs alone." The human whispered gentle words, the sound strange and foreign but filled with kindness and warmth. The alpha male tilted his head, feeling the tension in his muscles. Ease, the cub safe and happy, and the human harmless. A bridge had been built between worlds, small and delicate, but unshakable. The alpha female moved even closer, finally settling a paw near the cub in silent protection, a signal to the human that the wolves accepted the bond and would guard it with every ounce of instinct and strength. Their eyes met the human one more time, trust and curiosity shining bright. The cub yawned again, nestling fully against the human chest, paws curling, and the human hugged, gently returning the gesture. With a quiet murmur, the forest seemed to hold its breath, a fragile peace settling over the clearing, the impossible harmony between wolf and human stretching out in soft golden light. The wolves felt it deep in their bones, a certainty that this bond was not fleeting but a beginning, and that whatever came next, they would face together. The alphas exchanged a glance, silent and precise, a conversation older than words flowing between them, instinct and experience weighing heavily in each movement. The alpha male lowered his head just slightly, muscles coiled but relaxed enough to show patience, his eyes never leaving the cub and the human. The alpha female shifted closer, pressing her side lightly against her mate, a signal of unity and caution combined. Their cub safe and happy, yet the presence of this strange creature called for attention and judgment. They watched every breath, every twitch, every small movement. The human reached out, gently brushing the cub's fur, and the cub rolled happily onto its side, pressing fully into the warmth. The wolves' hearts twisted with both pride and wonder, their instincts screaming protect and claim, and yet something gentler, something wiser told them this human was not a threat, but a part of the moment, a part of their world that could not be ignored. The alpha male pawed lightly at the ground, slow, deliberate movements, signaling observation, patience, a readiness to act, and yet restraint. The alpha female circled slightly, sniffing the human cautiously, not with aggression but with careful study, eyes narrowing, and then softening, a low rumble vibrating in her chest. Approval, acknowledgement, a signal that the bond between cub and human was acceptable if fragile. The forest held its breath around them, every leaf, every bird, every shaft of sunlight witnessing the silent council passing between the alphas, their decision forming unspoken words, a resolution to allow this connection to exist, a promise that the cub would be safe and that the human would not be harmed but rather protected, a delicate balance between instinct and trust. The cub stirred once more, yawning and stretching its tiny limbs. The human laughed softly, the sound reaching the wolves' hearts with an unfamiliar warmth. The alpha male nodded subtly to his mate, a silent decree. The cub was theirs to guard, and the human theirs to watch over, a new pattern of life forming in the clearing, fragile, delicate, yet undeniable. The forest seemed to exhale a quiet sigh, a moment of understanding passed between the alphas, a harmony forming in the still air that would shape the days to come, and the bonds that had begun to grow would not be broken. The alpha settled slowly on the edge of the clearing, muscles relaxing but still alert, their eyes never leaving the cub and the human. The cub stretched tiny limbs and rolled onto its back, paws flailing playfully. The human laughed softly, scooping the small body into gentle arms, cradling it against the chest, a warmth radiating that made the wolves pause and watch the scene unfold like sunlight breaking through clouds. The alpha female lay down with a soft rumble of approval, her head resting on her paws, eyes following every motion of cub and human. The alpha male lowered himself nearby, tail sweeping the grass, lightly, muscles relaxed, yet ready. The forest seemed to lean in quiet and expectant, a delicate peace hanging over the clearing. The cub wriggled happily, nuzzling into the human, pressing small paws against the soft chest. The human whispered gentle words, small syllables, full of kindness and love. The wolves listened, feeling something unfamiliar and profound, a bond forming, not of blood but of trust, of acceptance and protection. The alpha male glanced at the female, a subtle shift of shoulders, and the motion spoke volumes. Trust, patience, and understanding flowing between them. The sun caught the edges of their fur, dappling gold across the forest floor, and even the shadows seemed softer and longer as though stretching to embrace the scene. The human rocked the cub gently back and forth, murmuring softly, and the cub yawned again, curling closer, pressing warmth into the body that held it. The wolves could feel the connection, vibrating in the air, a quiet, unspoken promise that this strange creature and their cub belonged together for now and perhaps forever. The alpha settled, fully resting, heads high, alert, but hearts eased, a silent acknowledgement that the clearing was safe, that the cub was safe, and that the human was now part of the rhythm of their world. The forest whispered around them, every leaf and branch a witness to the fragile harmony that had been created, a bond, delicate, strong, and unbroken, stretching across species and hearts. The clearing became a small sanctuary, sunlight and shadow, moving slowly over fur and skin. A moment, suspended in time, the sun shifted slowly across the sky, casting long golden streaks across the clearing. The alphas lay close together, eyes scanning the edges of the forest, yet their focus remained on the cub and the human. The cub stirred once more, yawning and stretching, tiny claws pressing briefly against the human chest, before curling back into warmth. The human hugged gently, murmuring words soft and kind. The wolves watched every motion, their instincts still alert, yet tempered by a growing understanding of trust and connection. The alpha male nudged his mate lightly, a subtle signal that this fragile bond was now part of their world. The forest seemed to breathe around them, every leaf, every whisper of wind carrying the quiet moment forward. The cub rolled onto its side, eyes half closed, pressing fully against the human, a soft sigh escaping the small lips. The human smiled, looking down at the cub, warmth radiating in every gesture. The alpha female shifted closer, placing a paw near the cub as if claiming guardianship without threat, a silent promise to protect both the child and their own flesh. The clearing held a peaceful rhythm, sunlight glinting off fur and hair, shadows dancing gently across grass and flowers. The wolves felt a deep calm settling into their bones, a sense of certainty that this moment would not shatter but grow, that the bond forming between human and cub was something enduring, something powerful yet delicate. The alphas closed their eyes, briefly breathing in the sense of earth and life and warmth. The human hummed softly and the cub pressed closer, every heartbeat a connection, a promise. The forest around them seemed alive with quiet approval, a harmony that bridged worlds, stretching across species and hearts. The clearing became a sanctuary, the impossible bond, real and unbroken. And as the sun dipped lower, the wolves, the cub, and the human remained together, a single family forged in trust, instinct, and love, ready to face whatever days and nights would bring. In the endless rhythm of the forest, their hearts aligned, their spirits intertwined, a promise carried on every breath that they would always protect each other.